This is something that is coming to your state and your schools. We have to be aware of this, and we have to, quite honestly, stop it. If you believe in equal rights as articulated by Martin Luther King, I'm in. But if you think Martin Luther King meant that we have to crush white people, that was Malcolm X. Malcolm X was teaching, at least at the beginning, he was teaching hatred and division. That's not American. We are all created equal and all given rights, and we have to fight for those equal rights. But this is a perversion of those. Now, Lori Meyers, she is a co-founder for Educators for Excellence in Ethnic Studies. She's a California educator, I think a first grade teacher. And she wants to talk about the ethnic studies model curriculum that is awaiting passage now in California. Welcome, Lori. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on the show, Glenn. I really appreciate your taking the time to talk about this super important issue that we're facing in California right now. And I totally agree with you. It is going nationwide. I
am so concerned. This changes the future for generations. If we start teaching this poison, we're done. As a people, not even as America, but as a people, we start to look at everything differently.
I completely agree with you. And as teachers, we consider ourselves to be pretty much on the front lines of this, but the real people on the front lines of this are our students. And that's why our group was formed. We are a grassroots group of hundreds of educators from across the country who want to make sure that we have ethnic studies curricula that achieve really important goals: confronting racism, developing civic responsibility, building the 21st century skills that our students need, like critical thinking, communication, creativity, but that don't devolve into critical race theory, which not only won't accomplish those goals, but will do quite the opposite.
Exactly. I mean, Lori, I don't know how you feel about any of this, and so you don't have to comment on it, but I have to tell you, in looking at critical race theory, and I've tried to swear off this word, in looking at what it teaches and how it teaches, the only word I can come up with to describe it is evil. It is intentionally destroying people, their communication with each other. It's dividing everybody. It makes you feel horrible about yourself. I mean, it's so defeating.
So what I really appreciate about what you just said is that critical race theory in the classroom, and in particular, our group right now is focused on the ethnic studies model curriculum, but there are a couple of other different front lines on critical race theory in California. But that we're not just concerned about what critical race theory teaches, that's the framework. We're concerned about how it teaches, and that's the pedagogy. And both are concerning, but in some ways, the pedagogy piece of it, how educators bring this into their classrooms, is even more concerning.
Lori, let's just pretend we don't know what pedagogy means.
I know. I've been told that many times. I'm sorry I'm down in the weeds.
That's all right.
Pedagogy is how teachers teach. For example, if I'm teaching math, I might be teaching content, which would be addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. But the methodology I'm using to teach it, the pedagogy, would be Singapore math or University of Chicago style math.
So
it's the way I teach it.
So there is I'm trying to find it in one of the things where the pedagogy would be to, and it didn't say inflict trauma, but make students feel vulnerable, sad, helpless, and teachers need to be familiar with trauma-informed practices. That sounds like a bad pedagogy. Am I using that correctly? And can you explain what this is?
Right. So that's actually one of the reasons that we are so deeply concerned about critical race theory as a pedagogy. Put out in the classroom in a number of different ways, and I'm happy to share examples. But the end result is that we're concerned about how it will cause trauma. And as teachers, parents are trusting us every day when they can't send their children to school to keep their children safe and secure. In fact, I've looked up the Code of Ethical Conduct for a number of school districts, which says that student safety and welfare is teachers' highest priority. And every teacher knows that unless we have that foundation in the classroom, learning just isn't going to happen. Yet the ethnic studies model curriculum itself acknowledges that topics like oppression, which, by the way, is mentioned in the model curriculum over 200 times, words like oppress, oppression, oppressed, can make students feel, and I'm quoting, vulnerable, sad, guilty, and helpless. And then the model curriculum itself states that teachers need to be attentive to, quote, trauma-informed education practices. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. A school curriculum should not need a trauma warning.
Okay, so, but wait, but isn't that saying trauma-informed practices, doesn't that mean that you kind of want to inflict a little trauma because that helps inform and it helps shape them?
So that's a really interesting point. And as educators, we agree that there are going to be difficult topics that are taught in school.
Correct.
As long as they are grade level appropriate. For example, students learning about the killing fields, students learning about Rwanda, students learning about the Holocaust. Those are going to be difficult topics,
Right.
but a well-trained good teacher teaching them with a well-developed curriculum will be able to teach them and maybe cause students to feel some deep emotions, but not trauma. And the other important difference is that with a critical race theory pedagogy, these traumas are caused because students are made to internalize feelings around impression. It's not just
Right.
the content that they're learning, it's the pedagogy that's having them internalize these feelings and feel personal responsibility either for inflicting oppression on somebody else or feeling like students in your class are responsible for inflicting oppression on you.
And
that's where the pedagogy piece is important. I'm sorry.
No. And it goes the other way as well. There in Berkeley, in the Unified School District there was a lawsuit. Are you aware of this, and can you tell the story?
So I'm not aware of a lawsuit in Berkeley, but what I am aware of, and I actually spoke with the former school board member whose student was in this class when this happened. So the school board member told me that in their ethnic studies class, which at that point was a high school graduation requirement, quote, various groups were denounced. Boys, Caucasians, privileged students, high-achieving AP students of all races, were made to feel bad. And another quote, white kids were made to feel bad. And the problems were so rampant in the district that the district was forced to drop ethnic studies as a graduation requirement.
What were the problems that this was causing?
The problems were that students were starting to denounce each other and target each other. And that's one of our concerns with critical race theory in the classroom. So first, what critical race theory does is it has students identify as part of a group based solely on race, based solely on skin color, and then assigns a judgment to them based on that racial identity. The second piece is then it asserts that one group is the oppressor over the other. And that sets up an oppositional relationship between the groups. It literally pits students against each other. And that's where I come back to the goals of ethnic studies and how this approach, a critical race theory pedagogy, is not going to help bridge the cultural divide. It's not going to build cultural understanding. It's not going to have students develop respect for inclusion. And these are all the goals of the original bill that mandated the development of the ethnic studies model curriculum. And that's why I keep coming back to, I hope we all share these important goals, but critical race theory pedagogy is not the right way to get there.
I don't know if we still agree on the same goals. There are people that are taking, I know that Martin Luther King has been put back in on the third draft, but if your instinct is to talk nice about Pol Pot and delete Martin Luther King, I don't think you get it. Martin Luther King articulated what he didn't tear down America. He said, America, live up to your own founding words. He challenged us to be better. And he challenged us to all live in a world where race doesn't matter. I'm not sure that everybody agrees with that anymore.
Well, I agree with what you just said, but what you just said is absolutely consistent with the bill that mandated the development of the ethnic studies model curriculum. It says that one of the goals is for students to promote self and collective empowerment, to promote critical thinking, to develop a more complex understanding of the human experience. From the California Social Studies framework, it's the standards that we all need to track to. Ethnic studies should help students develop respect for cultural diversity and see the advantages of inclusion. Those are all consistent with Martin Luther King. My concern is that the model curriculum in its current incarnation, and in fact its incarnation since its genesis back in 2016, has been based on a critical race theory foundation that is inconsistent with the original goals approved by the state. If we had a curriculum that tracked to those original goals, that tracked to California standards approved by the State Board of Education, then we wouldn't be having that problem. So I do think that you and I agree on the goals, and the state of California agrees on the goals. The curriculum is what isn't agreeing with those goals, and that's why it has to change.